Well. I hit the video again. Hold on. You've got to defeat the technology. It's Wednesday, April 10th.
It is Wednesday.
And it's time to go on the hot seat. FirstFootballGuys.com is the website. I appreciate you joining me here every Wednesday night at this time. Also on Saturdays at noon for the Ask Me Anything live streams. Always have a good time there. Had a great one last Saturday. Go watch the replay if you haven't already. Go watch all the replays. There's plenty of them out there. You can have a great time. We'll have a blast with all that. And so we're going to get into some stuff here. Hit the subscribe button, notification bell if you haven't already. If you previously completed those tasks, hit the like button, the notification bell, all those things. Dislike us as well. I want to get into this stuff because, so first of all, I'll just say it's going to be an abbreviated version tonight. I screwed up my time schedule. And so you'll listen to the first 40 minutes of me and the great Rhett Manuel from Fantasy and Frames, a good friend who really enjoyed chopping up, super knowledgeable guy. So brought him on. We'll be going 40 minutes here. Then I got to jump on to NFL radio with Rhett Lewis and talk rookies from a fantasy perspective on NFL radio. Dame, Scamper, Zare, hey, a Royal Slate in the house. Pigskin, how are you doing? So Rhett, you're going to be on later tonight as well, are you not?
Yes, sir. We're going live tonight at 9 Eastern, Fantasy and Frames YouTube channel, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. Fourth and Frame. So my co-hosts, Drew Scott and Chris Battistel, one of your colleagues over at Football Guys tonight, Dave Kluge, joining us. We're going to talk some potential second-year breakouts and some attainable dynasty stacks tonight. So going to be a good time, man.
Nice. Welcome everyone into the chat. If you got questions, throw them in there again. We'll cut it off about 40 after. And I do want to get into some stuff we've talked about a little bit here in the past, but I want to get some new takes because there's been some interesting views on the Stephon Diggs to Houston trade, in particular about CJ Stroud. The X device was all excited, and somebody has Stroud ranked like as their dynasty quarterback one. Rhett, how over the top is that for you? Where would you have him? Where would you have CJ Stroud from a dynasty perspective right now?
Well, even before the Stephon Diggs trade, I had CJ Stroud as my quarterback 3 in dynasty. That being said, I've kind of walked that back since then because if I'm being honest, Stephon Diggs over the past 2 years late in the season has not been especially great. So as much as it moves the needle for the Texans as a Super Bowl contender, in terms of a fantasy perspective, I don't see much changing. So right now, CJ Stroud is my dynasty quarterback 4 behind, of course, your big 3 as usual, your Josh Allen, your Patrick Mahomes, and your Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, I'm going to have him there as well. I'm going to have, I'm going to have Jalen Hurts in there as well. Right. Like the rushing equity, the score, the rushing touchdown equity. The other issue for me for Stroud, and not like we're splitting hairs at this level, right? And like he doesn't have the rushing equity, but also have like a minor concern. See what you think about this. Bobby Slowick, close to getting a head coaching, or certainly was a candidate last year. If they have another successful year, if we see another big CJ Stroud season, it's not unreasonable to think he might be a head coaching candidate once again, maybe a more desirable one. Would that be a concern if they have to change coordinators? I know in San Francisco, Kyle Shanahan runs the show. Not quite the case, similar offense. Can they find another mind to run that offense in a similar way?
I would say based off of how ubiquitous this Shanahan style offense is becoming in the league, I think you can find another guy who can very much have those same concepts and kind of sprinkle them in. I mean, we saw my New Orleans Saints do that this offseason and hire Clint Kubiak as their offensive coordinator. So, there are guys within that Shanahan coaching tree that are looking for a shot. So in terms of whether that's going to affect CJ Stroud long-term right now, it's hard to say. All I know is that this year in redraft and dynasty, I'm pretty much all in on CJ Stroud where I can be.
Yeah, I love him. John Bonneville is not wrong. I will often take Anthony Richardson, and Royal Slade knows this as well. Who, when he doesn't get him ahead of me, I will land. I'll take a chance on Richardson, but mostly in best ball. Again, we're kind of drafting early. You're taking some chances as we get closer to the season. If I start feeling like I'm a little overweight on one, CJ Stroud, I think, is right in that same range, a viable play. How do you see the receiver situation playing out? How do you see the workloads being divided up in Houston with Stephon Diggs there?
This really hurts me to say because last offseason, my first offseason in this fantasy space, I was all in as a Nico Collins guy. And I was like, he was getting drafted so late. And I saw the obvious physical skills. And I'm like, yo, if he gets 700 yards, it's a win. Well, he went for like 1,200 last year. But the thing is, last year, Tank Dell also emerged. And with the way that offense is going to be run, I see it this way. You're not paying Stephon Diggs to not be the number one receiver with that contract that he has. Tank Dell has too much value as a slot receiver. And not only that, but he has the ability to get downfield as well. So if I'm looking at it in terms of pecking orders in that Houston receiver room right now, I think it's probably Diggs, Dell, and unfortunately, my man Nico is probably the odd man out in that situation. But that being said, if you're looking at him as a best ball guy, he's got so much physical talent, and he has that year of trust with Stroud that he's still going to have those weeks.
Yeah, waiting for the price adjustment there. We've talked about it before. Nico Collins was going like a second round, almost exclusively tail end of the wide receiver ones. Those days are over. Stephon Diggs going early third, maybe late second, early third. Tank Dell going late third, early fourth. There's going to be a major readjustment, and so I'm going to be looking for a lot of that as well. Josh Allen on the other side of the football, I think people are a little bit concerned about him. I am not. I mean, what was Diggs averaging, like 50 yards a game down the stretch last year? We still ended up with Allen as quarterback one. I'm pretty confident in his abilities. What kind of receiver do you see them adding as we go forward?
You know, you're looking at that late first round, and there are a couple of options in my mind that I'm entertaining. First off, one of the obvious ones is like you look at him and you say Brian Thomas Jr. is probably an obvious fit there if Diggs was still there. But, you know, at this point, you also look at this depth chart that they have right now. It's, you know, guys like Khalil Shakir, Curtis Samuel, Mac Hollins. I mean, there's no real quote unquote wide receiver one dog in that situation. So if you're looking for a guy that can be a wide receiver one in this league that's going to be available late first round, I mean, Brian Thomas has that possibility. A.D. Mitchell has that possibility. I mean, I would love to say my guy, Ladd McConkey, is in there, but I see him probably more as a number two, number three sort of guy in that situation. So probably one of these bigger alpha type guys, somebody who can fulfill that Diggs role, run a few routes, which is more of a concern with Brian Thomas because in that last year of college, you know, he just got vertical so much, 68 receptions, 17 touchdowns, most of them downfield. So if you had to put guns to my head right now, late first round, I'm probably saying A.D. Mitchell is probably the best fit for that. But even then, with where he's being projected, which is probably early second round, still might be at a bit of a stretch in that situation. But I will say this, 28th overall, and we've seen this trade market work out this offseason. I don't know what the T. Higgins situation looks like in Cincinnati, but I would be shocked if Buffalo weren't trying to pick up the phone right now and trying to make something happen to get him in the room as well.
I think John Bonneville has a pretty good point here. What about the comp with, and he likes A.D. Mitchell, but a little more of a needs a little more development, does he? A.D. Mitchell also, like, I know not everyone's as high on him, but Keon Coleman as maybe kind of a T. Higgins comp, you know, is maybe someone that could be in the mix there. Or is that a little too early for him?
Keon Coleman, I will say this. I actually had the privilege of covering that kid in high school, and this is one of my favorite stories to tell. So, Keon Coleman is a senior in high school playing Class 1A football in the state of Louisiana. Great football state as it is. But I've never seen this before, and I won't see it again in my lifetime. He's playing the team from my hometown, and I see them. He comes across, they're playing a spread formation. He comes across the formation, and they roll not one, but two guys over to cover Keon Coleman just to make sure that he doesn't get the ball. And guess what? It still didn't work. And I mean, we've seen him have these big games. You know, he transferred to Florida State, had a huge year, started off the year against LSU, 9 for 122 and 3 touchdowns. I mean, he is a guy that can go and get the ball no matter what. Good contested catch guy. The concerns are about can he separate this, that, and everything else. But I will say this. If you have an athletically gifted guy, and let's throw out the 4.64 40 that he ran at the combine, because we've seen him actually on film play faster than that. So he plays faster than his 40 time, throw it out. If there is a skill that you can develop in the league, it's going to be route running. So late first round, I think you can very much have a possibility where, a guy like Keon Coleman can be in that mix as well.
We'll see how that plays out. I want to just hit on this because it is kind of newsy at the moment. Arrest warrant issued for Rashee Rice. We know what the charges are. 8 charges. 6 counts of collision involving bodily injury, 1 count of collision involving serious bodily injury, 1 count of aggravated assault. I think we're looking at 8 felony charges. Let's see. I mean, league typically will wait for the criminal case to resolve before imposing discipline, but Pro Football Talk is reporting because he faces felony charges, he could be placed on paid leave. This is not a great spot here. Or is this something like if you're out there in dynasty leagues, etc.? I know people like to instantly leverage things. Is this more of a wait and see for you kind of situation?
I would say it is a wait and see situation based off of the fact that you are going to probably have the league wait a little bit. I mean, we had footage of Alvin Kamara fighting in a club, and he still played that whole next season before he had a suspension levied upon him. So, we have footage of Rashee Rice and all these different things. I'm going to say wait and see on it for now. But yes, this is also one of those spots where if you wanted to get out on him early, or you wanted to acquire him in a buy low situation, like, I'm really fine with it either way right now. I just know I'm disappointed because I was especially high on him, and I updated my rankings this morning in the FantasyPros expert rankings, and I actually moved them down pending this morning to somewhere around wide receiver 29 for Dynasty, thinking something was going to go down. Wasn't expecting it to happen today, but he may have to take even more of a dip. But for now, yeah, I'm not comfortable personally acquiring him in this situation because he may play this year, but in a Dynasty format down the road, who knows what the heck we're looking at,
Let's just talk a little bit because I think it's funny. We do things like as fantasy managers, we want to act in the moment, right? When not necessarily in our best interest. So what's your approach to moderating in these cases? Or are you all in on leveraging them when someone is like acting goofy, right? Like people are like, oh my gosh, I'm going to sell Rashee Rice for nothing. I mean, are you going to be reactionary to these things? Or are you going to take a little bit of a wait and see approach just in general, not just this case?
No, I'm going to be a wait and see guy for the most part because with cases like this, first off, if they are newsworthy, they are people that are probably going to have value in some sort of fantasy league. I mean, we aren't talking about it if they don't matter in the league, right? We don't hear about some long snapper facing criminal charges unless it's something really serious. So in this case, you just have to, in my opinion, wait and see on it, see how it plays out. That being said, if you have something else that you can leverage, that you can perhaps go out there and acquire to fill that spot, because Rashee Rice is going to be in your lineup. And he may still be in your lineup, but you need to be finding a backup plan just in case.
Yeah, how did you feel about Marquise Brown? Just aside from Rashee Rice, maybe now that, his shades are thoughts on him a little bit. How did you feel about him going to the Chiefs, and what kind of possible outcomes for him do you foresee?
Loved that signing first off, because over the past several years, the Chiefs have kind of always had a guy to kind of clear out. That was the MVS role. The thing is that Marquise Brown is so much more than a Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and he's just a good player. So you give me a guy who is going to be playing with the best quarterback of his career and one of the better offensive systems of his career with a coach who's going to figure out ways to use him creatively and then clear him out sometimes and give him some big plays. I mean, where Hollywood Brown is going right now in drafts, I mean, sign me up for that all day. I'm expecting a bump to come, especially with this Rashee Rice news. But if you're going to try to trade for him, today might be the last day you might be able to get him at value with this Rashee Rice stuff going down.
It is interesting. Marquise Brown, Chris B in the chat there has had a little question about this. Right now, I mean, in best ball drafts, he's been going like late wide receiver 3, early wide receiver 4 range. I feel like that was going to grow anyway. Now it will be growing more. Pigskin Panic thinks this is the signing of the offseason. We'll find out. Like Marquise Brown, a lot to like about him. Also, availability is a really good ability. He has not always been available. But I think he's probably in the best spot of his career. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Hey, Wendy, nice to see you. Thanks for coming. By the way, it's an abbreviated version. We're going to get out of here in about 20 minutes till the top of the hour. So Rhett is kind enough to sit around. If you have any questions, throw them in the chat. You'll hear him on Fantasy in Frames later tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern time, right?
Yeah, 9 p.m. Eastern. Dave Kluge is going to be a good time.
Yeah, it'd be a good time. And follow him on the X device at R Manuel Sports, and hear him often on the Football Diehards radio program as well. And here every chance I get to have him on. So I want to talk about the Packers a little bit. Just looking at the quarterback situation, Jordan Love seems to be going well inside the top 10, like quarterback 9. How confident are you what we saw last year is sustainable, or maybe even there's more upside to be had?
I am at the end of last season when I saw the emergence going on. What's up, JSC? Good to see you. When I saw the emergence going down last season and saw him growing into the role, I got excited to begin with. And I'm so excited right now that I think he's actually my dynasty quarterback 8.
Nice.
I was looking at DLF earlier today. His startup ADP is 93rd overall. That puts him, 8th round, late 7th round, something like that. At that value, you got to keep in mind last year he finished as the quarterback 5 overall in fantasy points per game. You're getting him at value at quarterback 9.
Yeah, I agree with that.
He's got all these weapons. Jaden Reed, Christian Watson, Dontavian Wicks is interesting. Kraft, Musgrave, Josh Jacobs. Like, he has a lot of guys that can make him look good. And I don't know if you noticed last year, he made Bo Melton significant as well, too, toward the end of that year. So I don't think this is a flash in the pan guy at all. I think this is a guy that you need to kind of be acquiring, especially in a super flex situation, because he's probably going to be around 3rd, 4th round in a super flex situation. That being said, he's going to give you comparable numbers to those top 4 or 5 guys as well. So why the heck not?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I've talked about it all for over a year now, but the Packers' faith in him. And I saw a quote from Brian Gutekunst, just like from the owners meeting, where he said, I think the nice thing about having a guy in your building for the last 4 years is you absolutely know who he is. They absolutely knew who he is, and they knew that their receiving core that they built around him had a lot of young talent. How are you approaching that receiving core as we head into, the post-draft season? I think they've got enough bodies. I don't know that they'll be adding anybody. They didn't add a veteran last year because they like this young group. Jaden Reed seems to be the guy that is going way earlier than the rest, but not too early. Still a value like wide receiver 39 in early best balls. But you're looking at Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson, both at wide receiver 4 prices. Dontavian Wicks available wide receiver 5 or 6 prices. What kind of values are you looking for in those receivers, and which one's your favorite?
My favorite is the guy who's going the latest, and that's probably Wicks.
Me too.
Because when you have that sort of guy at that sort of value, I'm jumping on that. I'm a big drafted value sort of guy, pretty much in any situation. Then I'm probably going Reed, Dubs, and I've never been much of a Christian Watson guy. I just think he's too boom bust for my liking personally. But I mean, if you can get him, once again, I'll take anybody. Absolutely anybody at value. So if Christian Watson falls to me at the right place, sure, why the heck not?
Yeah, it's just not the hairstyles we share. It is the drafting style. I mean, that's like totally always looking for the cheaper parts. Week 1 in Brazil will be electric. I believe that is the Packers there against the Eagles. Be an exciting game. I think that's a Friday night, right? Wicks practically free is totally true. And it's the old Patriots draft strategy for sure. Watson working, went to a lab and is getting some work, and hopefully they can keep his hamstrings healthy. But I think you're taking your chances there. Although, if you're taking your chances and the price is right, we could think back to that rookie stretch, that 4-game, 7-touchdown stretch. I mean, he is a difference maker, or can be a difference maker when he's on the field. So we'll see about that. What are your thoughts on Josh Jacobs now that he's there, moving inside the top 10 running backs? Seems like a wise course. Matt LaFleur saying he'll have a receiving role. He's been effective in that. Has as many 50-catch seasons as Aaron Jones in his career. Both have 2.
Yeah, he's my dynasty running back 13 right now. So where he's going right now, sure. I mean, here's the thing though, is that whether you're looking at Josh Jacobs or Aaron Jones, you can pick the format. Josh Jacobs has the age advantage, so he's a little more valuable in dynasty. I will say this year in redraft, I am not sure which one I'm preferring, because I think Josh Jacobs goes higher.
He does.
I think Aaron Jones is going to be more of a value, and I think you're going to get similar production out of both of them. Yeah. They did bring back AJ Dillon as well, so he's going to still have a little bit of a role, though it is a prove-it deal. It's super minuscule on the money. So, but for the most part, we're just going to go ahead and I'm saying right now, the money spent means that he's probably going to be in for a big role over there.
Yeah, I would say Joe Mixon and Aaron Jones are two of the guys that I'm going to start getting a lot of in like, this is right. RB8 and redraft, I think is about right for Josh Jacobs. And you're paying that price. That's about where he's going in best ball as well. I know the football guys rankings right now, I think he's running back 7, but you're seeing like Aaron Jones is like anywhere from 18 to 21. Same price range for Joe Mixon going to Houston, where volume matters, people, and may well matter for him. So those guys are looking like great values to me. I love the Green Bay offense, though, so I'm hoping for the best for all the pieces there that we love. Aaron Jones, I think, as a value makes sense, but Travis Etienne seems like, running back 3 last year, Rhett. A lot of talk about Tank Bigsby having a role this year. I don't know. I feel like I'm just like not all in on ETN, even as much as the Jaguars had to be last year. How do you like him this year, as let's say in the running back 6 range where he's going right now in best balls?
Well, I was looking at it today at DLF. His current ADP is around 28, which is that early third round range. And for me, I've always been an ETN guy. I mean, I'm still waiting on that big pass catching season to happen that he showed at Clemson. I don't know if that's going to be his role in the league at this point. But I will say this. We heard a lot about Tank Bigsby last year.
We did.
And what ended up happening was Travis Etienne just proved himself to be above and beyond. So I'll tell you this. I do have some Travis Etienne in Dynasty. I'm going to hold on to that Travis Etienne and hope for the best. I'm not backing off of him. As they would say on the Wolf of Wall Street, I'm not effing leaving. Just me and Travis Etienne are practically married at this point. However, if I'm doing a startup today, I'm not sure that early third round is where I'm taking him, partially because we're in year 4. There's been some injury stuff in the past. He's got more miles on him than we want to admit between college, and also saw him in high school. A lot of carries on his legs in high school too. So more miles than we want to admit on Travis Etienne. So in Dynasty, I'm probably not going in on that early third round, but maybe 4th, 5th round, something like that.
Third most touches among all running backs in the NFL last year, behind Christian McCaffrey and Rashad White. The Jaguars say they want to do something about it. I don't know if Tank Bigsby is the guy who can help them get there. He did. John Bonneville knows he failed at every opportunity. Ball security is a big deal. I mean, they really liked him. I can tell you this because Dempsey is on the, he's at the facility. And I mean, everyone there thought they really liked Tank Bigsby, but he seemed like a great fit. Then he couldn't hold on to football, and he disappointed us all, including the Jaguars. So we'll see if he gets another chance. Just as you sit right now, Rhett, Josh Jacobs or Saquon Barkley is a redraft prospect for you.
Saquon, God, that guy, you put him in that offense. Jalen Hurts. I know Jalen Hurts is the touchdown guy, quote unquote, tush push, whatever it is. This is the best guy he's had in that backfield. So these two kind of feel like they're going to be a little bit symbiotic, right? They're going to feed off of each other. They're going to help each other out. They may not have as many touches individually as they've had in the past, but I think they're both going to be more efficient because of that. Personally, I'm taking Saquon because I think A.J. Dillon is probably a better number 2 option than anybody in Philly's backfield. So I'm just going to go ahead and take who I think is going to be the most valuable guy in that situation, and probably take Saquon over Josh Jacobs.
Right. Not every rushing touchdown in Philadelphia will come from the 1-yard line. So Barkley will have some opportunities there for sure. I'm with you there. I'd probably lead Barkley as well myself. How are we drafting the Miami running backs correctly? So I was looking last week, and Devon Achane, running back 8 on Underdog right now. Raheem Mostert is being drafted in round 8. Based on your earlier answer and my approach, I'm drafting the cheaper piece. But in this case, it seems like the disparity is super wide. Are we just is the assumption out there that just Achane's taking over the lead role?
I think I'm leaning Achane. Pretty much not even at value this time. I think the efficiency he showed last year in that role, as well as really any Miami running back last year, came out and was super efficient. That being said, Raheem Mostert, round 8. First off, 30-something-year-old running backs always scare me. And he was tremendous last year, but so much of that came from touchdowns. And we saw 2 years ago when Jamal Williams was a viable fantasy asset and he was boosted by touchdowns, what kind of happened there? So, if those touchdown numbers fall in half, and he still ends up with 9 rushing touchdowns. Still a very good season. But is it enough to justify that round 8 at this point? God, it's up in the air for me. I prefer A-Chain simply because of age and explosiveness and the efficiency he showed last year. But I mean, if you can get most of it round 8 and feel good about it, I mean, I don't blame you for it at all.
The Salvan Ahmed truthers have turned into Christopher Brooks truthers this year, and I will be one of those. We'll see what happened to Jeff Wilson Jr. So you look at that offense, Rhett. I mean, it seems like whoever's in there. Great piece by Jordan Rodriguez of The Athletic a couple weeks ago about how Mike McDaniel's kind of changed the way, widely being copied, but the motion that he has these guys running at full speed when they hit the line of scrimmage, giving them some options they can't quite. The defense, you've got your defender starting from flat-footed to spot going up against Tyreek Hill, who's running at full speed already when he hits the line of scrimmage. This seems like, the creation of mismatches. How heavily are you going to invest in Miami Dolphins this year?
I mean, I'm going to get Miami Dolphins wherever I can. But that being said, I mean, there are so many good players. I think Tyreek is the most obvious guy that's going to get his no matter what. I think he's the safest bet among them. I think probably after that, because you have the guy who needs to distribute the ball to all these weapons, I think Tua is pretty safe as well. I really like Jalen Waddle, but I think he's probably going a little bit high compared to where Tyreek is. So I'm probably not getting him at that price. And then you have A-Chain, who's being seen as a top 10 running back. Raheem Mostert, who's probably an RB2 in most people's eyes. I mean, let's be honest. There is no way that all of these dudes can produce at that level. There's one football to go around. And that's just kind of what it is. We can only say two things safely about Miami right now. Number one, Tyreek Hill is going to be their top option in the passing game. And number two, Durham Smythe will not be a top option in anything. So
Jonnu Smith, my new tight end 3 option in best balls. They bring him in there. He's got the kind of speed, all the kind of things you like. Zari has an interesting point here. The question we should be asking is if Achan's breakaway run rate is repeatable. I think the offensive design, and Zari, you've been studying this more than I have. You'll find Zari's work at FootballGuys.com, by the way, people. So check it out. But it seems to me like just with the design of the offense, it's basically, I know Matt Wallman described it like this, like you're setting people up for a bunch of kick returns. So at Tyreek Hill last year, 22 miles an hour, one of the top speeds in the NFL. Achan at 21.9, Mostert at 21.6. I mean, all within a half mile an hour from each other. I wrote the other day, nobody's catching them from behind. So I think like if a team is going to have the breakaway runs repeated, I think it's going to be Miami just because of the design of the offense. So that kind of is where the interest lies for me. Interesting question here. Any chance Kyren Williams and Puka Nacua could be one-season wonders? Where are you at on those guys, Rhett?
More in on Puka Nacua than I am on Kyren Williams in terms of being someone who is sustainable, repeatable, all these different things, because here's why. I mean, we saw him produce last year with Cooper Kupp in the lineup. And Drew Scott, my co-host at Fourth and Frames, who is very much a Los Angeles Rams person, keeps telling me that he wouldn't be shocked if he saw the Rams take a running back in the NFL draft. And so if you have the right guy that falls into that situation, I don't care if it's a day 3 pick, if it's somebody like an Audric Estime who can take some pressure off of Kyren Williams, one of these other guys, first one that comes to your mind, Marshawn Lloyd, whoever it is, somebody who offers something a little bit different to Kyren Williams, then all of a sudden it feels a lot more likely that, because of the fact that workhorse backs in the NFL these days are pretty much non-existent. Yes, Kyren was last year, but I don't see it happening 2 years in a row. So I'm going to say if there's one more likely to be a one-year wonder, it's going to be Kyren Williams.
Yeah, I think it was interesting. If you missed it on a previous chat here on the channel, people were wondering why Zach Evans wasn't getting more love. And so one of my colleagues at Football Guys asked somebody there in Los Angeles why that was. And he said, I don't know. We all think he's the best guy on the team. That guy was Royce Freeman, who said that Zach Evans is the best guy. We can't figure it out. So Breece Hall over Kyren Williams for me as well. I'm totally on board with that.
Yes.
Drew in the room, and you guys can watch all these guys later on Fourth and Frames at 9 p.m. Eastern time tonight. They do fantastic stuff. I love going on with them. Super knowledgeable group. All of them. Chris, Rhett, Drew have all been on the radio show. Fantastic stuff. So check them all out. Jorge has put together a fantastic team over there. everyone feels that way. Hall is my number 2. I'll draft Hall as high as. Are you number 1 on him?
He's my dynasty RB1.
I think that's fair for sure.
Yeah, I love that guy. I mean, he just does everything well. I mean, breakaway run rate, can run between the tackles, can catch the ball. I mean, what can't you like about him? I know people are going to say, well, what about the health? Modern medicine, ACLs, young guy. I mean, this early in his career, I'm not really that worried about it. I mean, he's my dynasty RB1 this year for sure.
Yeah, full year removed. I don't worry about it. I worry about it the year coming back, which is kind of has me concerned with Jonathan Brooks a little bit. His was November, mid-November. Yeah. So I'm a little worried about him. But once we get past that year, and that's why I'm wondering if we aren't getting a little bit of a value on Javonte Williams. I know it's like I talked to Parker Gabriel from the Denver Post. He says, "Well, don't get too excited. It's going to be a lousy offense." But that said, I mean, a full year removed for Javonte Williams going is kind of a running back 3, late running back 3. Is that a value to you, or are you shying away?
Oh, God. Last year, I was very much out on Javonte Williams because here's why. We looked at it. We are, by now, that full year removed. 2022, he had those 4 games. Last year, he comes out, 3.6 yards per carry, 11.2 fantasy points per game, RB 31. I mean, as tantalizing as the skill set was coming out of college. I mean, last year, he was just an inefficient guy. And also, I'm not sure that he's even the best running back on that team anymore with a guy you can't get a value, which is Lil McLaughlin.
Right. I mean, it's definitely a guy that Sean Payton likes as well. Jets address their offensive line. They have done that, and they may continue doing that. Cowboys obviously have a need at running back. Zari pointing out they've had the most visits in the league by running backs. Who is the right guy to land in Dallas?
I mean, my rookie running back 1 is Jonathan Brooks, but as you mentioned, the injury concerns are there. So at that point, if you're looking at a guy who can step in and contribute right away, if you're going to spend day 2 draft capital, the guy for me is probably going to be Trey Benson, because he's got the burst. He's got good size. He showed off all the skills at Florida State. So if you're going to have a guy that you're going to plug and play immediately, then I think you go Trey Benson. But I think if you want long-term upside, I think Jonathan Brooks is the play because I watched that guy on film and he moves a little bit differently than the rest of that class. I mean, he played behind Bijan. He played behind Roshan. He had all these guys ahead of him and he was third on that depth chart. But when you look at what that depth chart was at Texas, I mean, when he came in last year pre-injury, I mean, he was electric. So Jonathan Brooks for me is still the RB1 because if you're drafting him in a dynasty format, you're not getting him for just this year. You're getting him beyond that. So for me, Brooks is my 1 in dynasty. But if once again this year, redraft, things like that, probably leaning Benson.
Yeah, I'm with you there as well. We've got a few minutes left in case you missed it. It's going to be an abbreviated edition today. We'll get out of here at 40 past the hour. If you want to hear more of me, you can tune into NFL Radio on Sirius XM. I'll jump on for a segment with Rhett Lewis, the other Rhett, much less handsome Rhett, that's for sure. Oh, and then Rhett will be on later tonight on the Fantasy and Frames YouTube channel with Drew and Chris, and they do a fantastic job. So definitely dial them in. I will probably show up there and give a listen myself because it's good stuff. So get any questions in. While we're on the Cowboys, Dak Prescott seems to be, an issue there, his salary at least, and they've kind of need to pay CeeDee Lamb. He's going to be on for $18 million heading into the final year of his contract. Seems like he's due for a new deal. Michael Gelkin from the Dallas Morning News reporting that, maybe he won't show up for voluntary. Almost certainly won't show up for voluntary. The question is, does he push it past that? My guess is he won't. It's, he's going to be subjected to fines if he doesn't. But what is CeeDee Lamb to you with Dak and possibly without Dak? Because if this is an all-in year, it seems like the way they're setting up, Dak could be heading to free agency the next year. How comfortable are you with Lamb in your dynasty rankings?
CeeDee Lamb, if you want to know how comfortable I am, is my dynasty wide receiver 2.
Okay.
He's one of those dudes in this league that is pretty much matchup proof. It's him, it's Jefferson, it's Jamar Chase, and it's Amon-Ra St. Brown. Those are the 4 top wide receivers that I feel like in dynasty formats, and pretty much in redraft formats too. Those are probably the most bulletproof receivers that you're going to find in terms of fantasy football. So give me any of those 4 guys. CeeDee Lamb, even with if we had a backup quarterback situation this year, you know who they'd be targeting because backup quarterbacks don't run through progressions as fast? CeeDee Lamb. So CeeDee Lamb he's safe with me. He's good.
He is fairly safe for me too. Like the way they're using him, and part of this is on Mike McCarthy. Kudos to him, but they run him on those crossers, and there's no linebackers or safeties keeping up with him. He's like, it reminds me of the Devontae Adams being unstoppable near the goal line during his time with the Packers. Just that step back on the bubble screen, boom, he's in the end zone. Question here from JSC: what are some of the quarterbacks you expect to be better in 2024? For a few for him would be Joe Burrow, Bryce Young for me as well, Kyler for me as well, especially if he gets Marv or any of those guys, right? Like, any of the top wideouts there, I think would be perfectly suitable for him. Any others you like to maybe rise back up?
I mean, he mentioned my guy that I'm taking right now at value and Bryce Young. I mean, you're talking about a former #1 draft pick that is around that quarterback 19 or 20 in Dynasty right now. For me, that's unheard of for a guy that soon in that poor of a coaching situation with that bad of an offense and that bad of an offensive line to be underestimated. And he still was 12th in the league in pass attempts last year. So it's not like the volume wasn't there. It was just a bad situation for him. And then you add in the fact that they bring in Deontay Johnson, who, you ask me, is probably sneezing into 150 targets this year because he's going to be the best guy in that offense. Jonathan Mingo, you hope he takes a year or 2 leap. Adam Thielen, crafty veteran, can still get open, still going to get some targets, still going to get some receptions. Also, wouldn't be shocked to see them address another wide receiver in the second round. They have 2 early picks in the second round of the NFL draft. Those are going to work as their first round picks. So Bryce Young for me is a guy that if I can get him, especially for cheap, and maybe I'm doing myself a disservice right now because every show I've been on in the past couple of weeks, I've talked him up. So I'm probably doing myself a disservice right now. But if you can get him at value, I'd advise go out to get Bryce Young because you can probably get him pretty cheaply for the time being.
Yeah, I'll talk about the context in Superflex leagues. When you miss out like on he's like my tripwire, my last quarterback 3, right? I'll take him as my 3rd quarterback ahead of many other guys who I feel like don't have the same job security. That's one of the things he has going for him. I think at this point, nobody's going to replace him. Then you get down to that range, you're worried about some of the other people. I mean, I'll even take him ahead of like the Geno Smiths of the world. He and Will Levis kind of go in the same range. Which one would you be more comfortable with?
Right now, more comfortable with, I think Levis flashed more last year. And I think they've done a lot to upgrade that offense as well, too. So for me, it's Will Levis just barely right now over Bryce Young. But you give me either one of them right now as that quarterback 3, late quarterback 2 in Superflex. I'm fine with it because I think both of them are going to pleasantly surprise this year.
All right, everybody, we're going to call it a night because I've screwed up my schedule. But Rhett, before we go, give everyone the rundown where they can catch you at all times.
All right, I can be found on X/Twitter at @RManuelSports. I just updated my rankings over at fantasyinframes.com. We have updated rankings over there from everybody who's updating it in a FantasyPros expert platform. Dynasty profiles going on right now. I recently wrote one on Rashee Rice. We won't talk about that, but it's fine. Had good things to say about him. Things may have changed. I'll just say that. Besides that, every Wednesday night, 9 Eastern, 4th in Frames, YouTube, X, whatever you want to look at. We're there. We're having a good time. We're just talking ball and just being happy about things, man.
There you have it. All right, everybody. Thanks again. Apologies for the short night. I will not screw up my schedule going forward. We'll come back next week. I'll be here Saturday. I'll be doing a solo show on series on Saturday as well. Dempsey is away playing golf or some other nonsense like as that. Matt Harmon will be on of the Perception fame, and we'll have a couple beat writers, Jaguars, and somebody else. I'll figure that all out. So catch me here at noon on Saturday. Catch Rhett tonight with Chris and Drew at 9 p.m. on the YouTube channel, Fantasy Frames. That's it for us. We will talk to you very soon. Thanks again for your time, people. Really appreciate you.
Thank you, Bobby.